When I refused to pay for my in-laws' vacation, my husband's mom scoffed, "If you don't, we'll make sure our son leaves you." My husband shrugged, "You should just do it to keep the peace." I smiled and said, "Oh, I'm keeping the peace, just not how you think." Their screams echoed when they saw who I had been speaking to. I never thought my marriage would be tested over something as seemingly trivial as a family vacation. But here I am, sharing this saga that unfolded over the past few months. I'm Sarah, 34, married to Mark, 36, and we've been together for 7 years, living in a suburb of Chicago. From the beginning, my relationship with Mark's family, especially his mother, Patricia, has been strained. Patricia is the epitome of a controlling matriarch. She has this uncanny ability to make everything about her and believes she knows what's best for everyone, especially her children. Over the years, I've endured her passive-aggressive comments and unsolicited advice, all in the name of keeping the peace. Mark, on the other hand, has always been the peacemaker. He tends to avoid confrontation, especially with his mother. Whenever Patricia would make a snide remark or overstep her boundaries, Mark would brush it off, saying things like, "That's just how she is," or "She means well." This dynamic has been a point of contention in our marriage, but I've always tried to be understanding. The real trouble began a few months ago when Patricia decided that the entire family should go on a vacation together. She had her heart set on a luxurious resort in Hawaii. The idea of a family trip sounded pleasant until Patricia dropped the bombshell. She expected Mark and me to foot the bill for everyone. This included Patricia, Mark's father, his 2 sisters, and their significant others, a total of 8 people. We were having dinner at our place when Patricia brought up the idea. She was animated, painting a picture of sun-soaked beaches, spa days, and family bonding. I listened, nodding along until she said, "And since you two are doing so well financially, it would be wonderful if you could cover the costs. Consider it a gift to the family." I was taken aback. Mark and I were comfortable, but we had our own financial goals and responsibilities. Covering such an extravagant trip for 8 people was not something we had planned for. I glanced at Mark, expecting him to voice our concerns, but he remained silent, avoiding my gaze. "Patricia," I began cautiously, "it's a generous idea, but covering the entire family's expenses for such a trip is beyond our budget." The room fell silent. Patricia's cheerful demeanor shifted instantly. She set down her fork and looked directly at me, her eyes narrowing. "If you don't," she said coldly, "we'll make sure our son leaves you." I felt the color drain from my face. I turned to Mark, hoping for support. He sighed, finally looking at me. "Maybe we should just do it to keep the peace," he muttered. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The audacity of Patricia's threat and Mark's complacency was a slap in the face. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions. Then, a thought occurred to me, a plan that had been simmering in the back of my mind for some time now. I forced a smile and said, "Oh, I'm keeping the peace, just not how you think." Over the next few weeks, I started documenting every instance of Patricia's manipulations and Mark's passive responses. I kept records of text messages, recorded conversations, where legally permissible, and noted down incidents where Patricia had overstepped boundaries. It was both painful and enlightening to see the pattern laid out so clearly. I also began to reflect on my own feelings and the state of our marriage. I realized that Patricia's behavior was not just an in-law issue, it was a marital issue. Mark's inability or unwillingness to stand up to his mother was affecting our relationship deeply. I felt like I was constantly playing second fiddle to Patricia's whims. One evening, after a particularly tense phone call with Patricia where she berated me for not agreeing to the vacation, I decided it was time to confront Mark. I sat him down in our living room, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. "Mark," I started, "we need to talk about your mother." He looked weary. "Sarah, I know she's difficult, but she's my mom. What do you want me to do?" "I want you to stand up for us, for our marriage," I said, my voice trembling. "Her behavior is manipulative and toxic. And your refusal to address it is hurting me, hurting us." He rubbed his temples, clearly stressed. "It's just easier to go along with what she wants. Confronting her leads to more drama." "Easier for whom?" I shot back. Because it's not easier for me. I'm constantly walking on eggshells, trying to appease her, while you stand by and let it happen. The conversation was long and emotional. Mark admitted that he felt trapped between his mother and me, not wanting to upset either of us. But he also acknowledged that his avoidance was a problem. I suggested therapy, both couples counseling and individual sessions for him. To my surprise, he agreed. Therapy was a revelation. In our sessions, Mark began to unpack his upbringing and the enmeshment with his mother. He realized that Patricia had always exerted control over his life, and he had learned to acquiesce to keep the peace. But this peace was superficial and came at the cost of his autonomy and our marital harmony. Our therapist helped us develop strategies to set boundaries with Patricia. We practiced role-playing scenarios where Mark would assert himself, and I learned how to support him without taking over. The real test came when we decided to implement these boundaries. Mark called a family meeting at our house. I was nervous but hopeful. Patricia arrived, her demeanor as commanding as ever. She took a seat, looking around expectantly. "What's this about?" she asked. Mark cleared his throat. "Mom, Dad, everyone," he began. "Sarah and I have been discussing the family vacation idea. We've decided that while we'd love to spend time with you all, we can't afford to cover everyone's expenses." Patricia's eyes narrowed. "I see. So Sarah has convinced you to turn your back on your family." I felt a surge of anger but kept my composure. Mark shook his head. "No, Mom. This is our decision. Together. We've realized that there need to be boundaries. We can't continue to make sacrifices that jeopardize our own well-being." Patricia scoffed. "Boundaries? We're family. There shouldn't be boundaries." "That's exactly why there should be," Mark replied firmly. "We love you, but we need to prioritize our marriage and our own family unit." The conversation was tense, and Patricia did not take it well. She accused me of driving a wedge between her and her son. But Mark stood his ground, reiterating our need for boundaries and mutual respect. In the weeks that followed, Patricia attempted various tactics to regain control: guilt trips, silent treatments, even rallying other family members to her side. But Mark and I remained united. We continued therapy, strengthening our communication and support for each other. Our marriage began to transform. Without the constant interference and manipulation, we found a renewed connection. We started making decisions that were best for us without the looming shadow of Patricia's expectations. Things were finally starting to feel calm for a while. Mark and I had started enjoying simple things again. Movie nights without stress. Dinner without Patricia calling mid-bite. I wasn't constantly second-guessing myself. For the first time in years, our home felt like our home. But just when I thought we were out of the woods, Patricia found a new way to get under our skin. One afternoon, I got a message from Mark's cousin, Rachel. "We're not super close, but we've always been friendly." Her message said, "Hey, just wanted to check. Are you and Mark getting a divorce? Your Emil posted something weird on Facebook." My heart dropped. I logged on and saw it right there on Patricia's page. A long, dramatic post with a black and white photo of Mark as a child and a caption that said, "When you raise a child with love and sacrifice everything for him, only to watch someone come in and tear your family apart. Prayers needed during this tough time." Some people have no respect for mothers anymore. Hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments. People offering sympathy. A few even outright attacking me, calling me selfish, cold, heartless. One person wrote, "I always knew she was using him." Mark saw it a few minutes later. He turned pale. "I'll call her," he said. I stopped him. "No, that's what she wants. Attention. Drama. She's baiting you." But he did it anyway. I listened from the hallway. He started calm. "Mom, you need to take that post down. It's not true. You're spreading lies." She didn't back down. I could hear her yelling even through the phone. "I am telling the truth. She's changed you. She's turned you against us." I could tell Mark was struggling to keep his voice steady. "You're embarrassing yourself. You're crossing the line." She hung up on him. The next week was chaos. Patricia doubled down. She posted more cryptic messages. She shared old family photos with captions like, "Back when we were a real family." One of Mark's aunts even messaged me privately, saying, "If you don't want to be part of this family, maybe let him come home to the people who actually love him." It wasn't just online either. One day at work, I got a flower delivery. No note. Just a plain bouquet of white lilies. Harmless? Maybe. But Patricia used to say, lilies are for funerals. Relationships too, when they die. It felt like a threat. I started feeling paranoid. Looking over my shoulder. Jumping when the phone rang. One night, I heard someone knocking on the front door around 11 p.m. Mark was already asleep. I peeked out the window, nothing. No one there. Just a paper folded in half on the mat. It said in shaky handwriting, "This is not over." We reported it to the police, but there wasn't much they could do. No cameras caught anything. No fingerprints. Just an anonymous note with a chilling message. After that, Mark agreed to go completely no contact. He blocked his mother, his aunts, everyone who was fueling the drama. We even changed our numbers. But Patricia wasn't finished. About a month later, Mark and I went to the bank to open a joint savings account for a future home remodel. When the banker pulled up our information, she frowned. "There's a hold on one of your credit cards," she said. A fraud report was filed. We were both confused. We hadn't filed anything. Turns out, someone had impersonated Mark over the phone, claimed fraudulent charges, and requested a freeze. Whoever did it knew his old passwords, his mother's maiden name, even the name of our first pet. Information we'd only ever shared in casual conversation. With family, it delayed everything. We spent weeks untangling the mess, proving who Mark was, getting documents notarized. He was furious. I was exhausted. I knew it had to be her. Still, we couldn't prove it. We tightened up all our security, new passwords, two-step verifications, credit monitoring. But the damage had already been done. Not just financially, but emotionally. I felt like I was living under surveillance, like she was always watching, waiting to make her next move. Then came the final straw, or so I thought. One day, a letter came in the mail addressed to Mark. No return address. Inside was a photocopy of our marriage license circled in red marker. Underneath, someone had scrawled in capital letters, "He deserves better." Mark didn't say a word. He just stood there, staring at the paper like it might burst into flames. That night, he finally cracked. "She's never going to stop," he whispered. "She doesn't care if it ruins everything." I nodded. Then we ruined her plan first. But we weren't going to scream. We weren't going to fight. We were going to be quiet. Calculated. I started collecting everything. Every post. Every voicemail. Every text from her and her little network of loyal relatives. I made a neat little folder, dates, times, screenshots, and statements. Then I made an appointment with someone she'd never expect. The day I met with the person who would blow this whole thing wide open, Mark's mom was still running her mouth online, thinking she was safe. But the moment she saw who I had been speaking to, everything changed. She screamed so loud, the neighbors came out. I haven't even told you yet what happened after. Okay, so let's pick up where we left off, right after Patricia's world started shaking because of who I met with. I told you she screamed when she saw them. Here's the part where things get even messier. So, who did I meet with? An attorney. But not just any attorney. This woman, Rachel Sullivan, was sharp, precise, and honestly terrifying in a calm way. She used to be a family friend of Mark's dad back in their Army days, but had moved into high-end family law and civil harassment cases. She owed Mark's dad a favor, something about a pension dispute years ago, and when I reached out, she agreed to meet me immediately. I walked into her office with my digital folder, USB drive, and notes. I told her everything. And I mean everything from the family manipulation, the vacation stunt, the social media smear campaign, down to the creepy funeral lilies and that threatening letter. She went dead silent for a second and then said, "You might have a case. Actually, you might have several." What followed was a blur of legal conversations. Harassment. Defamation. Even identity fraud. Rachel said we could go full scorched earth if we wanted to. But I didn't want to blow it all up, yet. I wanted leverage. So here's what we did. Rachel sent Patricia a cease and desist letter, formal, direct, and terrifyingly professional. It laid out everything: the social media defamation, the impersonation, the note, even the letter with the marriage license. And she sent it certified, signature required. Patricia signed for it on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, she was blowing up Mark's old number with calls and voicemails, all panicked. "Why are you doing this? This is your wife's doing. I didn't mean any harm." One voicemail had her sobbing. Another had her raging. A full spectrum meltdown. Mark and I just listened silently, then deleted each one. But then Patricia made one more move. And this was the biggest twist yet. She called CPS. Yep, Child Protective Services. We don't even have kids. But she told them she was concerned about the well-being of a minor child in our household. Claimed she heard screaming and suspected emotional abuse. She knew we had our niece stay over for a weekend during her mom's hospital stay, and she used that to spin a narrative. Mark's sister called us in tears. "I didn't know she'd do something like this. I thought she was bluffing," she said. "It was a mess." CPS had to follow up protocol, even if it was a false report. The investigator was actually kind and professional. After checking our home and talking to both of us, she apologized. "I've seen this before," she said. "Retaliation reports from bitter family members. You're not the first." That's when it really hit Mark. This wasn't just petty anymore. It wasn't even about control. It was war. And war needs strategy. We sat down that night and decided we were going to do something no one expected, not even Rachel. We were going to make her answer in front of her community. Patricia lived for her church, her weekly Bible study group, her charity bake sales, her perfect image. She played the sweet old church lady on Sundays, when really she was the puppet master of a whole manipulation circus the rest of the week. So we gathered everything we had and prepared to go public. But not on social media. No, that's her battlefield. We chose somewhere she couldn't control, a private community board that her church used for neighborhood safety alerts, family updates, and events. It wasn't open to the public, but Mark's cousin, Rachel, the other one, the nice one who warned me before, gave us access. We posted a calm, fact-filled statement. No insults, no drama, just a very clear breakdown of what we'd been through. The CPS call, the identity theft, the forged report, the threatening notes, the social media campaign, the letter with our marriage certificate. We ended it by saying, we are sharing this not to cause division, but because we believe in truth and protecting ourselves from further harm. Thank you for respecting our privacy going forward. No names mentioned, but everyone knew. It blew up. 3 hours later, we had over 60 replies. Half were shocked. Some were confused. A few were angry. And then, something we didn't expect. A woman named Miriam commented, "She did something similar to my daughter-in-law 2 years ago." Another, "My niece stopped speaking to her after she tried to sabotage her engagement. Didn't know it was this bad." The tide was turning. Patricia's perfect reputation? Crumbling. And she knew it. That's why, the very next day, she showed up at our house. Uninvited. I was in the kitchen. Mark was in the garage. I heard the doorbell and checked the camera. It was her. She was holding something in her hand, a photo album. And on our porch camera, clear as day, she said to herself out loud, "They want a war? They'll get one." I haven't told you what happened next, but I will, because after that night, everything changed for good. So Patricia stood on our porch, holding that photo album like it was a weapon, muttering to herself about war. I watched from the hallway, heart pounding. I told Mark not to open the door, but he did. He stepped outside, calm, his hands in his pockets. "What are you doing here, Mom?" She didn't answer right away. She shoved the album into his chest. "I want you to remember who you are. Who you were before she poisoned you." Mark didn't even flinch. He looked down at the album, flipped it open, saw baby pictures, school awards, family vacations. I remember, he said quietly. I also remember you throwing a glass at Dad when I was 10. I remember you screaming at Aunt Pam for not lending you money. I remember you calling Sarah a parasite behind her back. That shut her up. She stepped back like he'd slapped her. I came to the door then, and when she saw me, her face twisted. You think you've won? You think you can come between a mother and her son? I walked right past her, out onto the porch. No, I said. You did that all by yourself. Patricia's eyes darted around. Neighbors were watching from windows, pretending not to. I knew this was it. I wanted her to feel it. The truth. The consequences. You called CPS on us. You tried to ruin Mark's credit. You sent anonymous threats. You faked a whole story online to destroy my name, I said. Mark stepped forward. We're pressing charges, Mom. She gasped. What? We know you made that call to the bank. We know you impersonated me, he said. The lawyer traced it. You left a voice sample. They matched it. Patricia went pale. Rachel, our attorney, had done exactly what she said she would, quietly filed a civil case. Identity fraud, harassment, defamation. And now it was real. Patricia started begging. She dropped the album, grabbed Mark's arm. Please. I'm your mother. He pulled away. I loved you. I tried to protect you for years. But you destroyed everything. And then I said the part I'd been waiting to say. I talked to your pastor, I said calmly. I sent him everything. The screenshots. The voicemail. The CPS letter. He knows. That hit harder than the lawsuit. She fell silent. You could hear a pin drop. That was the last time she came near our house. The legal process took months. She denied everything at first. But the evidence was solid. The judge ordered her to pay damages for the fraud, and a restraining order was put in place. She was banned from contacting us, stepping foot on our property, or posting about us online. She lost a few friends. A few relatives stopped returning her calls. Her reputation? Gone. And us? We weren't perfect. Mark still had to unlearn years of people-pleasing. I had to admit that I'd spent too long keeping quiet to avoid confrontation. I let a lot slide. I let myself become small to avoid rocking the boat. But never again. We moved. We bought a home in a different town, small, peaceful, just far enough. We changed numbers. We cut ties with everyone who took her side. Mark and I still go to therapy. It helps. We have rules now. Boundaries. Real ones. I sometimes see her name pop up in old posts. No one says much anymore. She's just the woman who pushed too far and lost everything. And maybe that's what she deserves. Because if you spend your life burning bridges, one day, you'll find yourself on an island. Alone,